Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. So if everyone could please gather in. We're about to begin the morning's event. And to welcome everyone, we have first our chair of the Westchester Women's Agenda, Colleen Brathwaite. The Dean of Pace Law School, Dean Harvest Anderson, will come after her. And then I will return. So without further ado, Colleen, our chair.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. It involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former slaves, former masters and slaves. With these words, on June 19, 1865, General Order Number 3, Union General Gordon Ranger, proclaimed an end to the last place in the United States where slavery still continued, in the final days of the American Civil War. And over 2 years after Abraham Lincoln is his signature to the Emancipation Proclamation. Despite its significance, Juneteenth was recognized as a federal holiday only in 2021, and only last week did the state of Nevada adopt it as a holiday. This is typical of the delay, which too often accompanies the work of addressing the realities of racism in the United States. Slavery existed for centuries before it was abolished. It took years for benefits of the Emancipation Proclamation were fully felt in the South and freedom was gained. This has kept the legacy of slavery and racism part of the American landscape long after the influence is pervasive, even to current law. Part of the conversation about race that has emerged over the last few years has been about how it has been possible to overlook this, to fail to notice in many ways the effect of an unjust racial status quo still permeates American life. If we're willing to look closer at what we have called progress, we can see in many ways it is incomplete with respect to the unfinished work that is America itself. Delay, defer, even roll back. These have been the defining characteristics of American engagement with its history of racism and the effects of the history even today. Dr. Martin Luther King spoke of America given its black population a bad check. In other words, a blank check. So I say it is past time for America to take that. Fill that blank check so Black America catch that check and begin to build the road to repair. Today, you will hear how that road is looking. We'll share and see where the potholes are and what can be done to smooth the way. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dean of the Pace Law School, Howard Anderson, who will read us, and then we'll continue with the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen. Good morning.
Good morning.
As Colleen said, I'm Dean Horace Anderson. I'm here at the Elizabeth House School of Long Beach University. And I would like to thank you for joining us here today for the Westchester Women's Agenda panel on this celebration of Juneteenth. So I'm going to be frank with you. I'm on a bit of a journey with Juneteenth, not unlike a journey that I've gone through my entire life in Black history. And the root of the journey is this. I grew up in Brooklyn. So as always, Brooklyn is in the house. So I grew up in Brooklyn, which means, and my parents are Jamaican immigrants. So what that means is, we got to get back on top. What that means is, I didn't have a connection to Juneteenth growing up, right? Juneteenth was not, by and large, an northeastern celebration. It was mostly southwestern and far western, because many of the people who migrated in the Great Migration from the southwest ended up on the west coast. So it was really a western phenomenon. I grew up in the Northeast. I didn't have any ties in my family to the South, to the American South, and so it was something I just didn't know anything about. When I started to learn about it, I learned about it from friends of mine who were from Texas, and they focused on the way that they celebrated Juneteenth, which kind of mirrored the way we celebrated 4th of July. So I didn't know anything about it, but I learned a bit about it from friends of mine, and eventually I learned more of history as I started to study American history. Here's where I am on the journey. When Juneteenth became a federal holiday, I noticed that it almost immediately, I talked about it about a year ago, right in the States, how it immediately started to become commercialized. And companies tried to make it the focus of sales, the same way we have sales around all of our other holidays. I didn't particularly care for that. This year I didn't observe quite as much of that, and I did actually see more attempts by everyone who was sort of taking ownership to focus on cultural celebration and to focus on the history. But here's what I noticed in the focus on the history. In the focus on the history, I started to see this mythology developing around what actually happened on June 19th of 1865. And this mythology is around how no one knew that slavery had been declared over by President Lincoln. And the slaveholders kept that information from enslaved people, and then General Granger came and made a big proclamation, and then everything was all taken care of. So Colleen has already talked about this is a fallacy. I actually want to talk about the moments before that pronouncement, that proclamation. It is almost certainly not the case that the people of Texas and the people of Galveston didn't know about the Emancipation Proclamation. The telegraph had been invented, had been introduced 20 years before this. Galveston was a major port city, which meant that there was a lot of communication between Galveston and other parts of the country and other parts of the world. It was the most populous city in Texas at the time, and it was a haven for spend time at the port to understand that this momentous thing has happened. One of the most important dates of the century, one of the most important occurrences of the century, there is absolutely no way that they didn't know. So when General Granger came to Galveston, he was not correcting an information deficit. It wasn't that there was no information about what had happened. What he was doing was correcting a deficit of leverage. Because it's one thing to know that something happened in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago. It's another thing to get that same information when the person giving you that information is backed by Union troops. So this was not about an information deficit. It was about a leverage deficit. The very same information that people almost certainly knew now had a different cast to it because of the way it was delivered and because of the leverage with which it was delivered. Now people, enslaved folks in Texas did a lot of things after the proclamation. Some of them left, some of them stayed. Some of them tried to get an education, some of them tried to find family members from whom they'd been separated over the years. But the important thing was what allowed them to start to do those things, to start to claim their lives as their own, was not the information. It was what came along with the information, the leverage. So as we try to take lessons from Juneteenth, and there are a lot of lessons that carry forward in U.S. history from that day. If you look at the unraveling of Reconstruction, you see the sort of reverse of what happened on June 19, 1865 in Galveston. When the leverage was removed, all of a sudden, Reconstruction failed. So there are a lot of lessons that sort of continue forward in U.S. history, and what I think is important for us to remember as we think about how we will address the bounced check. When we think about how we will complete the unfinished work, as Colin put it, fulfilling America's promise, it's not just about giving people information. About giving people information in context with the leverage makes them move. So I'm going to stop there. I think I've already gone, blown past my time limit, so thank you for your indulgence. And I want to just welcome you again. I look forward to a very important and exciting program, and I'll leave it with that.
Hi everyone, my name is Tasha Young and I am a member of the Westchester Women's Agenda Public Policy Committee. And what I'd like to say, the curator, not the only one, but the curator of the Juneteenth legislative event. And I come before you today because I believe Juneteenth should be celebrated. I think we're all learning, we are on a journey, as the dean said, learning together the facts because we weren't taught them in school. And it should also be some agitation along with the holiday of Juneteenth. So I come to you as a member of the Public Policy Committee, someone who loves policy, as an activist, and in my own identity as a Black woman and a descendant of American slavery. So welcome. I've learned so much from being a part of this process with you, so thank you to Pace Law School, Dean Anderson, for hosting the event. WWA has taught me so much in terms of race equity and really how the sausage is made of advocacy into legislation. The Public Policy Committee, the Juneteenth Committee, my family and loved ones, and everyone else who has ventured on this journey with us. As we travel down the road to repair, this iteration of this event is called the Case for Repair. Last year, during Juneteenth's inaugural year as a holiday, we came together in our first event and we said, Juneteenth, where do we go from here? We spoke about certain policy pockets that we know there is gross disparity: housing, voting rights, and health care. So this year, we've invited panelists to talk about repair in the form of cash reparations, but also other ways to repair. I learned in my career of policy making, and I'm going to quote one of my bosses, her name is Lori Cumbo, when I worked in New York City Council, and she said, "Tasha, legislation is lived." I also want us to understand that legislation is long, maybe not necessarily. COVID-19 taught us that laws could be changed like that. Money could be allocated just like that. So it's long, maybe. It's as long as we make it. The last thing I want to say is that legislation is imagined. And as I'm closing, I just want to go through a few dates, a few policy dates. So 1619 is when the 13 colonies had brought over their first kidnapped and enslaved Africans. In New York, in 1705, passed a measure designed to prevent runaways from fleeing to Canada, New York. In 1780, Pennsylvania was the first state to abolish slavery, but there were stipulations and complications. 1783, by judicial decree, Massachusetts abolished slavery. In the mid-1700s, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Connecticut adopted Pennsylvania's stipulation of abolition. In 1787, the United States abolished slavery in future states north of the Ohio River and in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. In 1804, gradual emancipation came to New Jersey. In 1817, gradual emancipation came to New York, but was not operational until 10 years later in 1828, when New York abolished slavery outright. In 1840 to 1850, the last enslaved in Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island either died or were emancipated. In 1847, Pennsylvania abolished slavery outright, their third bite at the apple, liberating their remaining 100 enslaved Africans. In 1850, slavery continued to exist, but was limited to those born before 1805, so only people of a certain age could not seek freedom. In 1860, New Jersey still had 18 individuals classified as indentured for life. And then we get to January of 1863, when President Lincoln announced the Emancipation Proclamation. And then 2.5 years later, as the dean mentioned, in Galveston, there was General Granger, and he said what he said. However, this was for the enslaved Africans that were in the rebellious states. Why am I saying that? Because slavery was still legal by 3 states that were that fought on the Union side, so they fought for the North. And they were still allowed to keep enslaved persons, even after the Emancipation Proclamation. So those states were not free of slavery until the 13th Amendment. So my tale is the tale of the long path that we were on as a country to really abolish chattel slavery. Like I said, COVID-19 taught us that legislation can be long, but it doesn't have to be long. That we can imagine the world that we want to live in, that we can be activists and advocates for that world. So, without further ado, I invite you all to open your hearts and your minds to imagining the world that we want to live in, and to remember that we are in charge, and we'll get down this road together. So, right now I want to bring up Angel Gray, who is a member of the Juneteenth Committee, and she's going to give you some background on our race equity timeline.
Good morning. As mentioned, I am Angel Gray. I'm the Program and Policy Manager at Westchester Children's Association. I'm also a member of the policy program here at WWA. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Over the years, the WWA has embarked on a transformative journey towards building a more equitable society in Westchester County. This timeline highlights the remarkable progress and significant milestones achieved by this trailblazing advocacy group. With a focus on advancing racial, economic, and social justice, WWA has emerged as a beacon of hope, working tirelessly to improve the lives of women and promote equality for all. From broadening its membership base to hosting impactful events and implementing crucial training programs, WWA's unwavering commitment to the mission shines through each chapter of their inspiring timeline. Now let's delve into the timeline of race equity and accomplishments and initiatives undertaken by WWA. 2015 and 2016 marked the beginning of a significant shift for WWA as it actively works towards broadening its membership base. This move aims to create a more inclusive and diverse community within the organization, setting the stage for meaningful change and collaboration. By 2016, influential Black leaders from nonprofit organizations started re-engaging with WWA, recognizing the potential for impactful partnerships and collective action. Their involvement added a valuable perspective to the organization's efforts and further emphasized the importance of racial equity of their goals. In 2017, the Anti-Racist Alliance appealed to WWA, urging them to support the New York State Senate Bill S8703. This bill aims to establish a joint legislative committee on racial equity and require the preparation of racial equity impact statements for all legislation. WWA recognized the significance of this appeal and the need for a proactive approach to address racial equity issues, further emphasizing their commitment to fostering positive change. The year 2018 proved to be a turning point for WWA, as they acknowledged the absence of anti-racism data in their status of women reports. In response, supplementary data was added to the report to provide a more comprehensive understanding of the issues faced by women of color. This realization prompted WWA's co-chairs and members to redirect their focus toward the specific challenges affecting women of color, recognizing the need for intersectional approaches to achieve true equity. In 2019, during the strategic planning retreats, WWA leaders made a firm commitment to fight anti-racism training for all board members at the organization's expense. They also recommended providing training opportunities for members with the aim of offsetting expenses through fundraising efforts. To implement this action plan effectively, a dedicated task force was established, demonstrating WWA's proactive approach towards creating a more inclusive and equitable community once again. Despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, WWA remains steadfast in their pursuit of racial equity. The first contingent of over 30 WWA board members and general members participated in the Undoing Racism Workshop, an important step towards fostering a deeper understanding of systemic racism. Additionally, 50 members took part in other anti-racist seminars as in-person training opportunities became limited due to the pandemic. WWA established its first racial equity working group, conducting monthly study meetings to continue their educational journey. 2020 was also witnessed fruitful collaborations as WWA partnered with area community partners to host a virtual discussion on the Government Alliance with Race Equity, AIR. This event sheds light on how governments can effectively implement racial equity policies and programs, further expanding WWA's knowledge base and fostering more community connections. In January of 2021, WWA nonprofit leaders met with the county executive and legislators to recommend joining GARE, emphasizing the importance of collective efforts in achieving meaningful change. Later that year, a second WWA racial equity work group was established, holding monthly discussion meetings to delve deeper into racial equity topics. WWA also explored additional racial equity training programs, including racial equity institutions, to further enhance the understanding and impact. Continue their collaborative endeavors, WWA Racial Equity Work Group partnered with CURE to form the Westchester Racial Equity Collaboration in June 2021. This collaborative platform aims to bring together all community organizations dedicated to racial equity, fostering an unified and coordinated approach for achieving lasting change. In December of 2021, during a WWA meeting, the county executive announced that the county would officially join GARE, a significant milestone in pursuit of racial equity. This announcement further reinforced the impact of WWA's advocacy efforts and highlighted the power of collective action in influencing systemic change. In a groundbreaking move, WWA hosted its first Juneteenth commemoration event in 2022. This milestone gathered not only celebrated the historical importance of Juneteenth, but also symbolized WWA's unwavering commitment to acknowledging and honoring the experiences and achievements of the Black community. The event served as a powerful reminder of the ongoing fight against systemic racism and emphasized the need for continued efforts to achieve equality. During the same year, very busy in WWA, during the same year, WWA witnessed a remarkable surge in participation from board and general members, who eagerly engaged in transformative undoing racism workshops. This active involvement demonstrated their dedication to personal growth and their resolute stance against entrenched racial bias. The profound impact of these workshops resonated deeply as participants courageously shared their personal stories and reflections during monthly member meetings, shining a light on the transformative power of racial equity training and inspiring others and reaffirming the importance of WWA's mission. In 2023, the County Executive GARE Racial Equity Leadership Team took the initiative to provide updates to WWA leadership and nonprofits regarding the progress and status of their collaborative efforts. As a positive sign of progress, and the Undoing Racism Workshop resumed in person, attracting new members who eagerly enrolled to embark on their personal journeys of growth and activism. With each passing year and milestone documented in this timeline, WWA solidified its position as a trailblazing advocacy group in Westchester County. The dedication to enhancing the lives of women throughout the county and women of color and families of color is very evident. By actively working together in Justice for All, WWA demonstrates its commitment to creating a more inclusive and equitable society for everyone within our community.
Thank you for that. Racial equity timeline is printed and available for you to take home. So we want to recognize our elected officials in the audience. First, we have our Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousin, who was gracious enough to come this year and was a panelist last year, and hopefully will say a couple of words about the Reparations Commission. And we also want to recognize Senator Shelley Mayer. So after the Majority Leader speaks, we will bring up our first presenter, which is Vinnie Bagwell. Majority Leader.
Good morning. Good morning.
beyond that, we're here for such an important issue. And I go way back with WWA when I was a county legislator, and WWA was advocating then for women and the progress of women. We have grown a lot because the number of voices at the table now to talk about, as our chair was explaining the timeline, to talk about not just women in general, but really drilling down to so much of what causes the inequity and the inequalities. And we cannot continue to pretend that we can play around the edges and not get to the heart of what really is eating at the soul of America. And so that's why I am proud not only to be here to listen to my good friend Vinnie Bagwell, who again I've known for years, back in city government in Yonkers, when after the racial desegregation case and we were trying to rebuild the city. I was part of the government at that time. And part of that was, again, to bring voices to the table. And Vinnie Bagwell was one of those voices that I was happy, along with Simra Brandon, who was the city council person here, to bring in and begin healing with art. And her work is, world-renowned at this point, and I'm sure she will tell you about it. But the reality is that we've been trying, I know you're going to hear from Cheryl and so many others who've been doing this work, but finally on the state level, and I'm just so proud that Senator Mayer is here and the Assembly passed it too. We finally passed a bill that we hope the governor will sign. We hope she will sign it soon to begin the commission on looking at reparations and New York State. And people are quick to write letters, do this, do that. You should contact the governor and tell her this is important for all of us to take a look at what's happening in this work. And I will close by saying, again, I'm in a historic position, as is Speaker Hasty. I'm the first woman, the first certainly African-American woman to lead any house in state government.
Come on!
And my colleague, Carl, the first African-American male to lead a conference in his house. We don't take our roles lightly, and we understand that there's conversations, if you can understand, we are 42 strong. We are a supermajority, and the supermajority that's ever happened in that house of diversity, of ethnic diversity, geographic diversity, and we sit in these rooms and we talk about criminal justice reform, and we talk about equity, and we talk about education, and we talk about the investments that have to be made in the community. These conversations have never happened in these rooms, and it may not be fast enough, but I can assure you that it is groundbreaking that we are doing this work. Help us to continue to do it. Help us to make sure that we continue to lead in New York, and we show people that we can indeed deal with equity, we can deal with inclusion, and we can deal with the past without pretending that it's going to break more hearts than it's already broken. Thank you very much.
Let us not pretend that it's going to break more hearts than the policies have already broken. I often say to the leader, you know, every day you wake up, you make history, and I mean it. She knows I mean it. And I'm so grateful that she's at the helm. We should all be. So I'm going to bring Angel back up to introduce Vinnie Bagwell.
I have the distinct honor of introducing Vinnie Bagwell. Vinnie Bagwell is the 2022-2023 inductee in the Who's Who in America for Sculpture. A representational, figurative artist who uses traditional bas-relief techniques as a visual narrative to expand her storytelling about marginalized people of color. She has won numerous public art commissions and awards around the United States, a Westchester native, and a Morgan State University alumnus. Is an untutored artist who began sculpting in 1993. Words of for it.
Good morning.
All right, so reparations is a noun. Making the amends for all one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. I want New York State to do what it takes. Actions too. I'm just saying. That's my idea. All right, so we know millions of Africans were enslaved for not 4 but 500 years in America. It goes way back. And you have to kind of look at it a little closer than the big picture. You know, children lost their mothers and fathers, parents lost each other, and slavery became the economic engine in the South. We all know about that. But slavery was conducted in all 13 colonies. So from Georgia to New Hampshire, these are the numbers. All right, so lately, within the last couple of years, movie makers have brought back the Tulsa Massacre, you know, again, which brings light to that history. And I'll go back. But the Tulsa Massacre wasn't the only one. These are all of the massacres. So you have in Chicago, you got in Colfax, St. Bernard, New Orleans, Charleston, and look at the years too. Fascinating. Again, where Black people were just killed. And so in Georgia, there's a place called Oscarville, which was buried underwater by releasing dam waters. They just washed out of town, just like that. There's a movie coming out this year called Lanier. It's coming out to talk about how the lake sits on top of that town. So there's a town underneath that lake that belongs to Black people. And of course, more than 5,000 African Americans were lynched in America. We all know about Emmett Till. I remember being a child seeing this in a Jet magazine. My mother didn't know I got hold of it. And I stared at it for the longest time, wondering what did they do to make him look like that? Must have been about maybe 6 or 7. I wondered for a long time, what did he do and what did they do to make him look like that? And then, of course, we have a long history of attacks on Black churches in America, segregation in Jim Crow laws, celebrities such as Fitzgerald, they weren't exempt from racism. And of course, Mary Anderson became important to the struggle to overcome racial prejudice. She's friends with Eleanor. And of course, Billie Holiday sang Strange Fruit as a protest against the inhumanity of racism. And I gotta tell you, I really love how the new movies are making these people more real. Like, I mean, I know who Billie Holiday was, but I didn't really fully appreciate it until I saw the movie and understood what she was doing when she was singing that song, why she was singing that song. It really made me love her more. All right, and then you have assassinations. There's Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. These were people who were attempting to advocate for civil rights. Well, then of course you have police brutality and unnecessary force used by the police against African Americans. Of course, this is all from, like, I'll just say the 50s and 60s and back. But since 2000, more than 28,000 African Americans have been killed by the police. More than 28,000. And so here's the racial disparity in men's imprisonment. This is across all ages. So on the left you have the white men in prison, and on the right you have the black men in prison. And so what is that? What is that? And so elevating the culture of a marginalized people, I believe it's a form of reparations. You know, I am a storyteller, and I've become a steward of this nation's memory. I take that as a major responsibility because the public art arena is a white patriarch arena. When I say that, I mean it's pretty much created and run by white men. In this country, we have well over 6,000 representational, figurative public artworks. 95% of them are by about white men, and that last 5% are women and people of color. It is the kind of arena where you have to be invited in still. Somebody has to give you that first commission. And I'm here to tell you, nobody's going to give you $1 million to burn when you haven't done it before. They're not going to give you $100,000 to burn when you haven't done it before. So it's really hard for the new people to get in because you have to have one to get one. It's like the chicken and egg thing. And so my goal is to design truly memorable places. If you're not familiar, last year we installed the Enslaved Africans Rain Garden in Yonkers. If you haven't been down there, please go. It is, you go to Yonkers and you know Main Street, when you go down under the train trestle, you go to the left. Or you can Google it. If you Google it, it comes up on Google, 20 Water Branch Street. This project was altogether a 13-year project, 13 years for transformation, and everybody kicked in. New York State, Westchester County, Yonkers, the National Endowment for the Arts, New York State Council of the Arts, Con Edison, I mean everybody gave for this project and we're lucky to have it. And again, creating places where inspiration and innovation converge. All right, so my artwork in public places changes the perception of place. This is my original design for Victory, which will be created for 5th Avenue at 103 in New York City. 41 months of wrestling with the city of New York, I got a contract executed. It's coming. Yeah, in dramatic and exciting ways. This is going to be the biggest fight. I want lights in the ground. And it's been done several times in New York City successfully. And you know, the concern with public art, particularly for New York City, is that they don't have a maintenance program. Imagine the largest repository for art in the country doesn't have a maintenance program, so it's a big deal if the light bulb goes out. It's not even about the cost of the light bulb, it's the fact that who's going to put it in. So I'm hoping that we can convince them to let me have this, because I think that is so spectacular. All right, so racial democracy is replacing offensive public artworks. It was a big deal when they took down the equestrian artworks in New Orleans and had to call out the National Guard to protect the people who were removing that artwork. That is amazing. And the fact that they removed Robert E. Lee in Richmond, amazing. Okay, and so around the country, I like Baltimore. Baltimore just took this stuff down overnight. It just went up. You know, they didn't ask anybody, they didn't tell anybody, it just happened. You know, but we've been talking about this in the public art arena now for, I don't know, about 15 years. Of what can we do to balance the narrative? And it took George Floyd and Breonna Taylor to get us to really do it. So it's happening now. And so telling the truth about our history is a form of reparations. This is Richard A. Tucker. He is the first black principal in Norfolk. It's Norfolk's first public artwork of a black person. So acknowledging what has been done to African Americans is a form of reparations. The fun thing about my experience is that in my process, I call myself humanizing Black people, humanizing enslaved Africans, and nothing has given me more, I'm just gonna say joy, than to have Sojourner Truth's family call me up talking about, can we come over? When? Yeah. This is her 5th generation grandson. Her family is littered with artists. They're painters. They're really good. And so it's kind of cool. And of course, after that, I get a phone call from Harriet Tubman's 7th generation niece, man, because she was invited to the party. I'm like, what? Anyway, it has been really interesting learning that these people, first of all, they were real people, and they had families, and their families exist. So art places elevates the culture of marginalized people. And it's, folk art is about the history of people, and it helps to balance the American narrative. So my style was defined by candid portraiture. Systemic movement for the big art. And I use bas relief. Bas is a French word, so you don't pronounce this. Bas relief techniques are used in non-traditional ways. I use it to extend the storytelling. This artwork that I did for Memphis, it was a small budget, and it was supposed to talk about African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans. They had a long list that they wanted covered in this artwork. And this was my solution to it, and this is how I came to be using this particular technique, because, again, by adding relief sculptures to the surfaces, I can tell you more visually. And so it expands the storytelling to inform the viewer. This is the piano lesson piano for 2012, not the now one, but in 2012, Ruben Santiago Hudson was the director for the piano lesson on Broadway at the Signature Theater, and he came and he asked me to create the artwork for the piano because he wanted his actors to be able to look at the piano and know their lines because they could see the story in the piano. And I fell in love with it. They kept it, actually. They took the artwork off the piano, had to make it again, but at any rate, I am Willie Boy. And so this is to create visual intrigue. Again, it's not hard to capture someone's eye. The challenge is how long can I make you look? How long can I make you think? And so my subjects have souls, which speaks to the viewer. It's really fun as a medium because now I get to hear people's ideas from all over the world. I can't tell you what it's like to have somebody from another country that doesn't speak English wanting to talk at length. Before we had translators, now we have translators, and when we didn't, there you are, copy, cut, paste, answer, copy, cut, paste. And what I found was that in the world, people don't look at this as Black art, they look at it as art, which really helped me to understand my role better. And so these works are meant to be engaging. They're meant to appeal to the humanity. And so I create initiatives to celebrate enslaved Africans. The Enslaved Africans Creative Garden is a project that I began because I had left New York for 10 years. When I came back, the fun thing about Yonkers is some things change and some things don't. And what I really like so much about every administration that I have experienced in Yonkers is that they do listen to the community. They really do. And they do care about what we want, and they do oftentimes enable us to do things to improve our community, and this is one of the things that they supported wholeheartedly from day one. I really appreciate that. All right, and so this is to emphasize the importance of preserving local history. This is the Phillips Manor Hall. Most of us know that this is the oldest standing building in Westchester County. What a lot of people don't know is that Frederick Phillips was the largest slave trader in America, second to the folks in South Carolina. And again, you have to go way back to about the late 1600s. Before they made all of the laws, like in the beginning, it was supposed to be an indentured servitude kind of thing. And we were really supposed to get our 40 acres in the middle. And then they had ideas of economic development. And economic development and racism, it it's all really about greed. It's not about color of skin, it's about greed. And so the goal is to humanize the memory of enslaved Africans and to remind people that many of these people were children. These were youth, very young people. And the goal is to give them a voice. You know, people say to me, oh, is that young love? It's like, no, those are 2 kids that have been enslaved and haven't seen their parents in years. What do you mean? You know, it's like, no. And so you try to help people understand what it means to be dehumanized and then try to humanize them again. And so, interesting enough, I've met a bunch of people over the years. Spoken word artist Ty Vale came to me in 2010, and the first time we spoke on the phone, he told me a story, and I said, okay, I know what we gotta do. And so if you go to YouTube and you search Vinnie Bagwell, my YouTube is pretty organized. If you go down to the enslaved African graveyard, there are 5 movies, 5 stories about each of the characters. And I said to him, I want you to tell me who they were. Like before this happened to them. Who were they? How did they get captured? What happened on the boat? What happened when they got here? How do they know each other? Why are they all in the same place? What is this whole story about? And he did a beautiful job, so by all means, take the time to go and listen to them. They're worthwhile. I do in-studio workshops for students. These are my 5th graders from the Pearl School. I love them. They're very, very engaging. I mean, they're so serious. They come with their phones up, and you know, they're here to document. And they've got good questions. I don't teach. You know, people ask me if I teach. No, I don't teach. But I do like to talk about things like intuition. Like I'll go around the room and say, what is intuition?
Something that you experience within and you know it's going to happen. Okay?
So we go around the room with them and you know, turn to your partner and tell them the thing. And so they all kind of know what it is. We all kind of know what it is. The fun thing about intuition is that everybody has it. They say that women use it the most. Artists use it a lot. If you read books on it, and I recommend The Intuitive Way by Penny Pierce. It's a must-read book. If you haven't read that book, read it. The Intuitive Way, in my opinion, is probably one of the best books on the subject. There are lots of books about intuition. Everybody agrees that intuition is the voice of God. And they're not ever talking about religion. When you read these books, they're never talking about dogma or religion. They're talking about reality. There's somebody out there. It's alive. It's in your head. You hear it just fine every day, all day. And usually it's instructions. Like, don't park here. Go on the corner. And if you argue and park here, when you go around the corner, there's a parking space in front of the door. You're like, oh, you know I should park. Learn how to listen. So we have these conversations about that. And they're very intrigued by this because they know what I'm talking about. At any rate, these artist talks are to foster dialogue about racial. These are our new words, racial equity. What does it mean? And so civic engagement has been the keystone to my practice. As you can see, I invite lots of people into my home. I live where I work where I live, and the goal is to see the artwork while it's being made. Because I am a public artist, not a curatorial artist, I do not exhibit. You want to see my stuff, you have to come to my house, or you have to wait until I ever finally do an exhibit. I don't do them very often. I see you. Okay, so bring the community into the process is kind of a standard. And also, Governor Cuomo made an essential business in 2020. It's a reflection of New York's values. We believe in public art here in New York State. And so I'm also working on the sacred place of my ancestors, which is an African burial ground in Montgomery. We discovered 86 people are interred there. This is a GPR survey that was done by the United States Agricultural Department. I did not want to dig up people that did not want to touch the ground. And so now we have the ability to scan and see. The wild thing is that they're only about 18 inches from the surface. So we decided to design a walkway that goes around them. We don't want people walking all over them. We want them to experience the space. Now, this looks pretty open, but really it's the woods. They're in the woods. Along, this is 416, right off of 84. Right now it's just a truck road. We want to turn it into a dignified cemetery. And we need more money. So funding, of course, we're going to continue to memory of enslaved Africans. These are the goals. There's an 8-foot woman in my house right now. I'm curious to see her. Call me. You can always come over and visit. And so the goal is to let the truth be told. This is my Harriet Tubman for Philadelphia prayer I learned. Thank you.
Artist will tell the story. So we're going to take a 5-minute stretch, and we're going to bring our panelists up so they can take their seats, and we will begin our next portion of the program in 5 minutes. So please bio breaks, eating, do whatever you have to do, and come back to your seats in 5 minutes. We will hold questions for Vinnie to take place after the panel, so we'll have all of our Q&A at one time. Thank you so much, Vinnie. As you're walking, we do have tables from our work groups, reproductive rights, voting rights, financial empowerment, and racial equity. So please visit our tables.
Yeah, I'll get something later. Okay. Yeah, I will. Thank you. just focused on this.
Thank you. Kendrick brought us all back to our seats. We're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right. So thank you everyone again. The bios for all of our panelists can be read in our program, so please do so you can know who is on the panel. But I will introduce them all by name. First we have the phenomenal Cheryl Brannon, return panelist and great friend, Cherish Saletti, new great friend, Leilani Yizer Reed. Sarah Cox, Stu Nilsson. So the way we're going to do the panel is each panelist will have 5 minutes to give their introduction and let us know how they find themselves on this journey with us to repair. So we'll start first with Cherish, as Cheryl. We'll start with Cherish Saletti. You ready? We'll start with Cheryl Brandon.
Marvelous. Thank you so very much. Good morning. How's everybody doing out there? All right. This is such a fabulous program, and certainly I want to begin by just shouting out Colleen, who is the chair of this marvelous organization. And the great work that she does. We at the Sister International are so pleased, certainly to partner. And then, of course, we've got Robbie Schwab, and we've got Kate Kernan, and we've got Tasha. So guess what? We can't lose with the stuff we use. Very quickly shout out Vinnie Bagwell, who's been a long-time supporter of Sister International. Senator Cousins and Senator Mayer, who I know had to leave, but certainly we're so happy to partner with them. And then finally, last but not least, I want to shout out the STSI team. First, my sister visiting from Maryland, and the STSI team members in the house. All right. All right. And now my time starts. Moving right along. All right, so I have 5 minutes, and I'm going to move right through this, but I really wanted to give you some quick background on the great work Sister to Sister International has been doing. First of all, you should know that STSI, as we call it, was established in 1994, and our mission is to motivate, to educate, train, and advocate for the advancement of Black women and girls and families, locally and globally. And then in 2019, we unveiled some seminal research entitled Still I Rise, the Status of Black Women and Girls in Westchester County. And we established 4 pillars in that research. And those 4 pillars have now become a primary area of focus for Sister to Sister International and have evolved into work groups. So you're probably saying, what are those pillars? They are 1, STEM and STEAM education. 2, health and wellness and Black maternal health. 3, juvenile and social justice, as well as 4, pay equity and economic prosperity. You should also know that STSI holds special consultative status with the United Nations, so we do a lot of work with them, not only locally, but globally. So now I'm going to move to the very first pillar. Can I get an A woman for the first pillar? All right. And that very first pillar that I'm going to give you a quick overview of, or what I like to call a helicopter's overview, is pillar number 1, Black maternal health and healthy lifestyles. When we did this work, we thought we needed to come up with a problem statement. We needed to identify the facts from our research report, our long-term outcomes, and then, of course, some of the accomplishments that we made. And, of course, we have the in-process measures. I'm just going to give you a few of them for each pillar. First and foremost, as it relates to Black maternal health, we all know that it's a national crisis. Black women in Westchester County run a higher risk of dying or near death in relation to pregnancy, childbirth, and afterbirth in comparison to their white counterparts. What are the facts? Well, just to give you a couple, we know nationally maternal mortality of Black women is 3 to 4 times higher than white women or their white female counterparts. We also know that in 2017, from 2017 to 2021, right here in Westchester County, the cesarean rate for Black women was 42.9% and 37.5% for white women. And I have a handout that I will be giving all of you at the conclusion of my remarks. So you're probably saying, well, what are the long-term outcomes? Where are you trying to go with this? The goal is to improve Black maternal health outcomes through increased public awareness, outreach to pregnant women and their support systems, and educating, very important, educating healthcare providers regarding the social determinants of health and the bias that negatively impacts Black maternal health outcomes. We have a number of accomplishments, but let me just very quickly tell you that we partnered with various community partners, including Senator Andre Stewart Cousins, Senator Chuck Schumer, Westchester County government. We have created a Westchester Black Maternal and Child Center of Excellence. All right. I know you want to say a woman on that. So we're doing great work there, pre-eclampsia campaign, Mom to Bus Act, all kinds of wonderful services that we're doing there, partnering with St. John's Riverside Hospital, and you'll see the rest. Moving right on to pillar number 2, STEM, STEAM, and health careers. STSI has been in the forefront of STEM and STEAM. We were the first organization to create a program for Black and girls of color in Westchester County. So we have STEAM jobs are growing. We know that STEAM jobs are growing almost 2 times as fast as non-STEAM jobs. We know that long-term we want to have more Black and brown girls be ready and interested in entering STEAM-related fields. We have an annual STEAM camp and just doing wonderful work in that arena. And then, of course, we have the third pillar, entrepreneurship, pay equity, and economic prosperity. And here, basically, we want to even the playing field for Black women. We know that systemic racism and other barriers lead to unequal pay. We know that in New York State, that Black women are paid only 68 cents on the dollar. So we've done some great work. We've launched a Black online business directory here in Westchester County. We've got Lauren Williams right here, and she's a wonderful designer. Please see her. Lauren, raise your hand. And we also have another one of our sisters, none other than Charmaine Golding, who owns the Golden Cross in White Plains. So please patronize them. And then finally, I'm going to wrap up with pillar number 4, which is juvenile and social justice. And here we know that nationally, Black girls are 7 times more likely to be suspended. And we have the stats in Westchester County. You'll get a copy of those as well. So long term, we want to certainly disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline. We've done all kinds of wonderful things in terms of screenings and focus groups and so on and so on. So we have absolutely been on the move with our 4 pillars. We encourage you to take a look at them. If you'd like to donate to Sister International or become a member, we have the information over at our table. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Sarah. We will have a time for question and answers after each panelist has given their presentation. So next we'll have Cherish Saletti.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cherish Saletti. I am the supervising attorney at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley here in the White Plains office. I kind of wanted to start by giving you all a little bit of a background of Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. We are the largest provider of free civil legal services in the Hudson Valley. We have many different units that service a myriad of people. We have an elder unit, we have a housing unit, and we'll be talking about housing a little bit later in more depth. We have a veterans unit, a public benefits unit, LGBTQ unit. What am I missing? Probably something. Yes, that unit, our disabilities unit, and the CSS unit, which services folks who are severely and persistently mentally ill. So we provide legal services, free legal services, quality legal services to the community and members of our community. And what I want to say also is that in all of our units, even if it's not housing, everything relates to housing. Everything comes back to housing. And when I started my career as an attorney, I started as a prosecutor. And I wanted to come away from that and go on to the more civil side of things because I wanted to have a more meaningful impact on people's lives and quality of life. And I never could have foreseen the parallels that exist between the criminal justice system and housing. It was the more in-depth I get with this work, the more I see the parallels and the more work that I see needs to be done. Essentially, we'll talk more, on the panel, but the same things and the same systems that have hold on people in the criminal justice system have those same holds in the housing system, in public housing and private housing. I do want to mention that we did have a very good victory about 2 weeks ago. The Right to Counsel bill was signed. I was part of that coalition. I think those of you who are familiar with it, we worked tirelessly on it. Jason Mays, who's not here, but he was really instrumental. in that. And it really is amazing legislation. It is a step in the right direction, but there's still more to be done. You know, I pondered, I heard the dean's comments earlier, and they really resonated with me because I also am the daughter of Barbadian or Bayesian immigrant. You know, when the question was posed to me, what does Juneteenth mean to you? I really had to kind of dig deep and think to myself, well, what does it mean to me? And when did I really come to know it and understand it? And it took a while because growing up, I did not know about it. I didn't hear about it. It wasn't taught in school. It still isn't taught in most schools. I mean, you know, the kids' calendar will say Juneteenth, but when you ask the children, well, what did you learn about Juneteenth? They're like, oh, I don't know. The slaves were free. Really? Okay. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and it wasn't until I took my kids to Galveston that I really said, let me try to understand Juneteenth from, you know, an enslaved person's perspective. And the dean's comments resonated with me because he said something very profound, like, people really, it wasn't that they didn't know. And it's the same thing that my kids said when we were there. They said, Mom, how did they not know? Like, what do you mean they didn't know? They knew. They had to have known. And it's the same thing that we must bring with us in, you know, new legislation and our right to counsel bill that's, you know, been recently passed, and making our housing fair and equitable. Your clients know. They know when they're being discriminated against. They know when something is not fair, but they know that, you know, maybe there's nothing that can be done at the moment, but there's something that should be and will be, and we will continue to do through our work. So thank you.
I'm also a trustee of Village of Mamaroneck. I own my own business, reparations, which deals with the whole person. I'm doing wellness workshops as well as advocating for pregnancy and infant loss, bereavement, and doing all of that hard work and grief. So, and I work for the Mayor Council. That's my 9 to 5. But at all times, I represent, again, myself and the people that I see every single day, which is community. I was tasked to talk about housing because I'm putting on my trustee role and just dealing with being a Black woman in a political space. I never wanted to be in a political space, but it was something that I come to know that it was a part of my purpose in life. And because I am a purpose-driven person, I said I'll do it even when I am not ready or willing or wanting to even face people. But one of the things that we face in our community, which is a predominantly white community, is housing. And housing, and what does housing look like? The variety of housing that we have in our community. I say often that I live in this community and I'm from Mamaroneck. My family is one of the oldest families in Mamaroneck present day. My family's been there since the mid-1800s, and we still have family living there. And I can't afford to live there. You know, so you think about the variety of housing on many levels. Our middle class is slowly dying. Our lower class is just done. And when we sometimes often get a lot of people saying that whole, if you're not familiar with NIMBY, not in my backyard, they start to bring up things, and this is why you can't necessarily call it racism, but you call it for what it is. They want the landscape of the community to look the same. They don't want housing, what they perceive housing to be, because it all at the end of the day is a perception. Is they don't want it to look a certain way. They don't want a certain people coming into their community. And so me as a trustee, it's very hard to, one, digest that information, and then two, to push forward, to say this is what we need. We need it for all people, but I definitely want it for people for my community, my Black community, to stay in America. We are slowly dwindling in our community. We were once vibrant, but we are slowly leaving. Leaving because there's not housing opportunities. Leaving because there's a lot of racism in our school system. And obviously, when people don't want you in their community, they'll find ways to get you out. So it's important I know a lot of communities are really developing in their communities, but they'll say it's affordable. But when it's not affordable when it's at 80% of the average median income. It's not affordable. And what we're trying to do as a community, as a board majority, give thanks. We have a board majority who's trying to be progressive and get things done. And one way we're trying to get it done is we own a piece of land, and we're going to build affordable housing that start at 30 or 40 years. Hire contract a entity, an organization that will train not just our village employees, our trustees, but also community members on DEI and what reparations are. A lot of things that I want to do, but I don't know how much time I have in this space. I'm going to do what I can, but I'm always going to represent myself. And I'm always going to represent my people, and I'm always going to represent my community.
Sarah Cox.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. When Vinnie was speaking, one of the statistics that really stuck out at me was that 95% of all the public art and monuments in the United States was white men. So I'm thinking about the town of Irvington, the village of Irvington. Before we commissioned and brought into Irvington Vinnie's glorious piece of art yesterday, which is on this poster, the only other two pieces of public art we had, Rip Van Winkle. So there's the sleepy old white man for you. So we are really lifting up the landscape and the storytelling in Irvington. So just a couple of minutes of how we in Irvington sort of got started with this. About 4 years ago, my colleague Kathy Sears and I co-founded the Commemorate Committee. Now we're still co-chairs, and my very good friend Arlene Burgos is here. She's also a member of the Commemorate Committee. So I had been working for 2 decades at Phillipsburg Manor, and I had been telling the story of slavery in the lower Hudson Valley. But I realized in my own backyard there would be a hyper-local story, and I needed to find the names of the enslaved women, men, and children who were the invisible founders of Irvington. And it was right about the same time that we were all going to Black Lives Matter protests, and we were movingly chanting the names of young and old Black people who had been murdered. And I thought, I need to get these names and I need to find them now. And we did. We scraped the bottom of every will and inventory of the enslavers in Irvington, who, by the way, are named on every single street in Irvington, going off of Main Street. That's a whole nother topic. But we did, we found these names, 14 names, and we presented our information to standing room audiences in Irvington. We, at the same time, went to Vinnie Bagwell's opening of her miniatures of the enslaved Africans that are part of the large statues now at the riverfront in Yonkers. And Kathy and I looked at each other and said, it will not do until we bring one of Vinnie Bagwell's sculptures to Main Street in Irvington to really show that this is our history. It's not just a little piece. And the then trustees, they said, why don't you just find a little rock down by the river? This is really not our history. We are not known for this. We've got Rip Van Winkle. We're like, nope, sorry, we will not stop. So we worked and worked and worked, and finally, when we just got shut down by the village trustees, we went to the school board, and they had a beautiful piece of property right on Main Street. And we had to work with them. Vinnie came to one of our meetings, and we had to work through the fact that there's a nipple showing on a 6-year-old girl, but we got through that, and they did finally agree. And this beautiful piece of art now is on Main Street. We have lifted the voices of the people whose story has been unheard and unmemorialized until this time. We have also, in our research, rediscovered an enslaved African burial ground right in Irvington, and the village trustees are now working on creating a beautiful memorial garden with benches and plaques. So I'm just so honored to be on this panel with my new friends here, and look forward to having you come visit us in Irvington and see this art. Thank you.
Stu Nelson.
Morning. 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 Let's try this. There we go. Hi everyone, my name is Steve Nelson. I'm coming from Brooklyn, New York, but born in Michigan, raised on the West Coast, Swedish and European ancestry. Really grateful to have been extended the invitation to be here. Thank you so much, Tasha. And I guess there's 3 specific focuses that I want to kind of tune into today while I have 5 minutes. And that is, especially on this commemoration of Juneteenth, one, that white people know what freedom really is. 2, that white people have the experience of humanity. And 3, that we as white folks would see the violence that we're committing and stop the violence and start to heal. And so, just with the time that I have, I'll share a little bit about how I came to see these 3 kind of underlying forces in my life as important, or even able to be seen. I'll just say that my journey of recovery began back in 2012 when I hit my racial bottom. As Americans, we are a part of the white historical collective, and we have hit our bottom time and time again, but we continue to act as if all is well. We hide, we pretend, we hoard, we deny, we lie, and we can't actually heal until we're honest. Principles of recovery include honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. We can stop the suffering today, but only if we are willing to tell the truth. Over the years, I've been asking the question, what is my gatekeeping superpower? Gatekeeping is a concept I learned from the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, and I let them give them full credit for the beginning of this journey. So whatever it took to get there, I'm grateful. What is my gatekeeping superpower? And through the process of the years of asking that question, I've gotten a little bit clearer. What does it look like and what is it going to take? Part of the journey has been understanding and connecting the dots between race and wealth, and looking at our specific part and role in upholding the structures of white supremacy. Fund releasing as a context for healing is an idea I've been working with. It's not a new idea, it's just maybe a new framing. If we as white people participated in the collective release of capital, we are participating in and contributing to our white body collective healing. The release of no strings attached funds to meet the basic needs of Black families, to invest in Black and Indigenous communities, and to invest and infuse depleted Black and Indigenous institutions and communities. Over the last 6 years, I've been working on developing a national framework for ending the racialized wealth divide, which includes 5 redistributive wealth building models. Basically, this framework is about white people taking responsibility for ending the national historical crisis of resource hoarding. And as we've heard from the other members of our panel today, we wouldn't be having all these issues in our communities if we weren't dealing with white resource hoarding and the crisis that has occurred historically across our nation. This is about networks of white families, white faith communities, white-led for-profits, philanthropy, and educational institutions gathering, organizing ourselves, and creating networks of redistribution. Building a culture of repair that builds the national muscle, bit by bit, day by day, for the movement that is actually needed to actuate reparations at the federal government level. Education is required and will destroy our idea of individualism that actually keeps us captive. If we're doing this on our own, we actually are going to fall to pieces. But when we're doing this together, we can do anything. And history has shown us that that miracle is possible. It's going to take us undoing our internalized superiority. It's going to take our willingness to be messy and wrong and imperfect. Freedom comes from integrity and authentic life. And we haven't actually been breathing until we gasp a breath of the sweet humanity that is possible when we take this daily journey together. Historical study is imperative, and working in our families of origin is also imperative. This is multi-generational work, discovering our piece of the puzzle, discovering what humanity is going to look like for us, and then going out to work on it as if our lives depend on it, because they do. But it's really about cleaning up our mess first, gaining clarity and never thinking that we have the answer or that we've arrived. We have a lot of work to do, and we can't actually do it unless we do it together. If you feel inspired by any of this, I want us to consider what's it going to actually take to fund movements that organize white people to organize ourselves inside this context of recovering our humanity. Philanthropy has woken up and has started to see the importance of funding Black-led organizations and even reparations initiatives at the local and state levels. But what would it mean if we actually began to fund organizing in white communities for reparative initiatives? I know my time is up. Can I take one more second? How do we imagine a world beyond white superiority? We're going to have to give something up, but the more that we do, the more humanity we get, and we can't keep the humanity unless we give it away every single day. And if we don't know that it's missing, that's the place to start. So what's it going to take? Knowing truth, organizing educational opportunities, and historical study. Some initiatives that we're working on are a reparations study hall. That's how I got connected with Tasha. There's a summer cohort of 6 white folks. We're studying Black and Indigenous history. We're studying the atrocities committed, the crimes against humanity, and the repair that's needed. We've launched an anti-racist education fund to expand access to race and class analysis to those who don't have the economic means. We have a goal of 17,500 by August 23rd. I'm happy to share that information if you'd like to contribute. And we're going to start with the family model organizing and the redistributive wealth building model of the framework. An anti-racist white mentor and friend, Reverend Joe Barnes, said over soup at a diner a number of years back, we have to work with the white people who are warm to the idea. Warm, open, friendly, because they don't even know what it's actually going to take. Are we willing to be the ones who finally take responsibility for changing the trajectory of the generations to come? If not us, no one else is coming. Let us gather and tremble and joyfully together in our fear and in our vulnerability and in our truth and in our healing, one day at a time, to do this work. Thank you.
What a panel. So we're going to spend the rest of our time answering and asking questions, and we will take some from the Facebook live stream as well as from the audience. I want to start where Stu ended when they spoke about what white people's work could be on this journey. The Juneteenth movement is now fractioned off into the nativist, meaning descendants of American slavery in America, and a broader conversation about even after the Emancipation Proclamation and the freedom of slaves in the year of 1865, we have dealt with thousands of policies that affect all Black people in America. So Black people also have work to do on how do we repair the harm that's been done. So there's a nativist thought, and then there's a broader all Black people in America thought. So everyone has their work, and this is a calling in. So the first question I have is for Cherish. Cherish, could you please explain good cause eviction and its relevance to equity and Juneteenth? And you'll have about a minute.
Well, so I just want to start really, let me slow down. There really is no good cause eviction. It kind of exists. The Albany law was struck down by a county, and where it does exist, like in Ulster County, it's not my words, but a colleague's words. It's not worth the paper that it's written on. It's not upheld anywhere. We don't have it in Westchester. Good cause eviction would actually, let me just back up for a moment and explain precisely what it would be. It essentially is, if you are a landlord, you would need a reason to evict your tenant. And it would have to be good cause, right? So your tenant is a nuisance. They are destroying your property. Something that would really rise to the level of they shouldn't be allowed to remain as a tenant. There are certain types of housing that you do need good cause to evict a tenant, but it does not exist everywhere. It's not universal, and there is a very large turnover with, we have clients that come to us every single day. You get 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days notice, and you're out, and that's it. And then you go to court, and then the judge says, okay, how much more time do you need? 2 weeks? And that's it. And with the housing stock in Westchester, specifically, because I'll speak about Westchester since I know it well, it is nearly impossible to find good, affordable, habitable housing in the time frames that you are given. And so what good cause eviction would do is it would stabilize people long term, and it would really allow people to remain. And it could be written, the way that it was written, it's, if you're just a single or a single family homeowner, 2-family homeowner, you have a little bit maybe more flexibility if you need to rent to a family member or something like that. But my time's probably up. I could go on.
Well, the good thing about all of this is that, and we'll hold applause to the end in the interest of time, but the good thing about all of this is that this is not, we're not ending. We're finding out how. And Sarah, how could one find out about the history of slavery in their own community here in Westchester?
Many of us would probably have a historical society in our villages and our towns. shocking surprise if you walked in and said, hey, I want to find out about the history of slavery in my town. They would look at you and try to point you in the direction of the bonnets and the gowns that they've just hung because they're celebrating something that happened in 1900 that has nothing to do with slavery. So, as much as I love historical societies and what they could be, there's room for growth there, but the place to go is the Westchester County Archives on Sawmill River Road. They are amazing, and if you just walk in and say, I live in this village, can you please help me? They cannot believe their good luck, that you will just be overwhelmed with the amount of information, original documents, the wills, the inventories that list the human beings, and it's mind-boggling. It's an easy way to sit down for a few afternoons and get the kind of information you just can't believe you can get.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a question for Leilani. What are you doing to create an affordable community?
Like I said it earlier, sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it is the housing that we're going to build. It's really talking about why 80% does not work at all. It doesn't work at all. And that's just to save face, that's just doing surface work to say that you're building affordable housing. It's really advocating, really educating individuals, because we do, and unfortunately, we have to educate people on housing. And it's something that it should be so simple, and understanding that housing is different. It can be your house that you pay for, it can be something that you rent, it can be a condo co-op, it could be a whole host of things, but it's really educating people on housing and really building something that is affordable and sustainable, and listening to the needs of the people. And then again, I think also another hard part is getting people invested and willing to advocate for these things. Because even the people who need it don't even know how to advocate, or they're, scared to. There's so many barriers to it, but it's really getting people out to say this is important in your own prospective towns, because one thing that some municipalities may say, we have it, we're doing it, and it's really not, they're not. And it's requiring, it's mandating. No, we need 30, 40. We don't need 80% AMI, because at the end, if you literally look at 80% of the average median income, especially in my community in Marion, you're literally looking at the $1 million people, and the average median is like $700,000. That's not hitting the person who's making 70, who can barely get a job, who can barely get a promotion, who can barely afford, not working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. We know the cost of living doesn't match up with our wages. And then on top of that, Black folks not getting things that they deserve. So there's so many iniquities.
And this question is for Cheryl. What are social determinants, and how can they impact one's life? And how do they, how can we make policy to address that impact?
Sure, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, social determinants. Are we on here? Okay, great. Testing, okay, great. Yeah, social determinants are so very important because they are what helps to keep the problem in place, and they are plagued, or they're sort of anchored in systemic racism. So Sister to Sister International and our 4 pillars in our work, there's an intersection in that work. So for example, if you're a pregnant woman, it depends on where you live. What sort of housing do you have? What sort of air do you breathe in your community? Where do you work? Are you making the minimum wage? What's your education level? Where do your children go to school? So all of those kinds of things come into play. And when you have a racist society, what these issues do is they help to keep your socioeconomic and your overall position in society at a minimum, which makes it much more difficult for you to thrive. So what we at Sister to Sister International are doing, for example, with our maternal health initiative, we're working with St. John's Riverside Hospital. We're having doctors and physicians, certainly healthcare providers, and the entire senior staff, everyone, trained in antivirus training and various other systems trainings in that regard, one. And then two, as it relates to our equity work, working with parents, we're making sure that parents understand equity and inclusion, understand that parents understand how to be advocates for their children. So regardless of what the social determinants are in terms of what your current position is, we're working towards helping to uplift and change the status for Black women, Black girls, and Black people in Westchester County overall.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Stoop, I have a question for you coming next. Can you speak a bit about white imagination as it relates to the construction, creation of transformational solutions to societal, structural, and systemic inequalities?
Okay. Well, I guess, a Black man said to me recently, wow, it's really inspiring to meet a white person who's using their imagination. And the thing that I thought when he said that is, I wouldn't actually have the imagination that I have if I hadn't experienced the humanity that I've experienced. And this is why more white people are not imagining ways to design ourselves out of the system that we're stuck in. We don't experience our humanity. And so, if that is bothering you as a white person in the audience or hearing this, that's something to look at. I really appreciate Dr. Janet Helm's white racial identity development model because there were things that she had reflected to me as an early journeyer on understanding my white racial identity that made me go, that's not me. That's not me. But without having that to reflect on and say, well, why did she put that there? Why is she saying that's part of white racial identity development? And I'm saying that's not me. Well, maybe it is me, and I haven't discovered what it is yet. So it's being open, like I said, willing and honest to look for the things that we don't believe are true about ourselves and to trust that other people can see better than us. And I just want to uplift those Black friends, neighbors, and mentors who have told me the truth about myself and who've been courageous to do so, because I'm not a very easy person to confront. But if we don't experience our humanity, we're not going to have access to imagination. So that's our work, is to find that.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? It's okay, because I have more. There's a question in the back. Wonderful.
So I'm Kim McNair from my sister's place. I'm also a trainer with the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. And I actually have a question for Vinnie. I was really intrigued and excited by the picture I saw of you working with those students. And I wanted to know, do you have a limit on the number of students that you invite into your space to not educate, but to spend time with them? How many? I'll be in touch.
For instance, with the Pearl School, we did 60, but we broke them 20. So because there's a lot of seating in the downtown waterfront, you can walk up to the Pearl School, you can go down to the rain garden, you can walk smaller groups?
I'm asking because I supervise 2 teams of folks at my job, at my sister's place, who work with youth, and we're planning some summer activities. And one of them, for the first time this year, is a field trip, since we're coming in on the lower end of the pandemic. And I would love for our students to meet you, to see your work, to hear from you. So yes, I'll come around later, get your card and talk to you, but I really want to know, because I think that's an exciting opportunity for students, especially in Westchester, where there are people, even in purplish Westchester, who don't want to teach history. So I'm really excited to meet you and to know that you do this work.
I think what's more important, because of that, is that a lot of children are born artists, other born artists.
Thank you.
What I'm trying to say is that some children are born artists. I'm a born artist. I mean, from the beginning of time, when they gave me a pencil, I had ideas and things I wanted to draw. And I learned how to read when I was 4.5. I learned Braille when I was 5. And I was interested in learning. And there, in every class that I was in, there was nobody like me. Like I was always the artist in the class, which was cool. But the point of it is that when I was growing up, and I don't think it's very different for kids right now, a lot of parents do not encourage their children to be grown-up artists because they think that we don't make any money. It's not true. The challenge is learning how to create a business, and they don't teach art as a business. In art school, there's no business class. My daughter went to Parsons School of Design. I came back to New York to mentor her because I knew they were going to teach her how to run a business. My daughter now is an RN delivering babies because she couldn't figure out how to be self-employed. Didn't matter that I was helping her. The point of it is that not every child is going to fit inside the box. Those of us who live outside the box live in the box, and not even real. So sure, happy to your kids.
Thank you. When we think about, just building on what Vinnie just said and Kim's question and what Stoop had shared about the resource sharing. The resource sharing. So you can have the talent as an artist, but unless you understand the business of art, you can have a very hard way to go. So part of the repair is opening the gate of access to information and resources, including funding, land, and the like. So I just wanted to build on that. Any other questions from the audience? Yes?
I'm loud, I really don't need a microphone. Okay, on these microphones. I want to draw a line between art and imagination, and then Stoop's call for imagination, and tie it in with Irvington and this new public statue. And has this new art opened the white peoples of Irvington's imagination? And starting that connection of, I'm going to call it curiosity about, like, why didn't I know that? I've lived in Westchester 30 years. Can you, Stu, talk about, is that type of imagination an entryway? And then Sarah, can you talk about, have you seen more imagination like that in Irvington since the art went up?
I absolutely think that that is an entry point. I think that white folks really like to fund artistic things too. And when it comes down to what is actually needed in the realm of repair, we've heard over and over on this panel, and we hear it in the news every single day, it's the basic needs that have people live life and thrive that is not available. The housing, it's the food security, it's the medical care. So we just have to think about what we're prioritizing, and I'm not saying that artistic projects are not important, because without access to those artistic projects and those storytelling experiences, we're not going to be able to see that there might be something connected to what's going on right now in our lives. in relation to what happened in the past. Because all we do is try to erase what's happened in the past. And part of the way that we do that is we fund these important projects, but we don't get to the basic needs in building these foundations and tell the truth about what we're doing with our money collectively. So those are just some thoughts on that.
Thank you, Sue. So for about the last 4 years, this has been a project in the making, and we were so excited every time we got into a room with 120 people, and they were all ears, and I can't believe this is our history, and we were fundraising, and we were letters to the editor, we had presentations, and when I look back on it, I think it was about the same 120 people in the room for those 4 years. But now the art lives on a grassy knoll, smack, when I say in the middle of Irvington. There has been a burst of imagination. I have walked by, and Arlene has mentioned this too, there's always a group of people standing in front of the art, leaning down, reading the plaque, which I also brought a copy of. There's so much more engagement. We have a nice Juneteenth festival on Monday in a park that was more diverse than I've ever seen. And I know that this was bringing people together over this piece of art, over a renewed call in Irvington to ditch its racist past and to embrace new storytelling. Thank you.
Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
I just want to kind of touch on what she said. In 2010, we had an exhibition of the rain garden maquettes at the Arts Westchester on the Marion Avenue here in White Plains. I was here for a month. And I visited the gallery every day it was open for at least 4 hours. I wanted to watch the people. During the week, Arts Westchester's gallery is frequented mostly by white people, about Monday through Friday, the Black people on the weekend. And on day 2, I realized I needed to come with boxes of tissues because white people would come in and they would be sort of, and you're sniffing. I'm like, this is interesting. And so I would come up behind them and offer tissues, and they'd be flustered like, I can't believe it's so emotional. And I was like, what's the matter? And the response that I got almost every time was, it's so beautiful. And it was when I learned the power of beauty, that you can take the most difficult subject, and if you can find a way to present it with a certain level of beauty and humanity, it can strike the heart. And that's what I strive for in every artwork that I've made since then, is to give the artwork a soul, to make people feel it, and to make them respond to it. And I can always tell when I'm successful by the things that people say in my social media or they say to me directly. I think that the beauty of yesterday is that when people see it, their gut reaction is, ooh, it's pretty, it's beautiful. And then they start to talk about what they think about the little girl. And then, of course, the people working at the bottom or whatever. But I think the first disarming factor is the beauty. The medium itself is a beautiful medium. And I think that if you're not the kind of person who sees art often, or you don't frequent galleries and things like that, I think that sometimes that's the surprise. That your imaginations have them thinking negatively, and then when they see that it's actually beautiful, it helps them. And I think that's part of the healing aspect, that they grow to care because they realize that it doesn't hurt.
Thank you. We next will have a comment from Cheryl.
Yes, thank you so very much. I just wanted to share with the dialogue my issues, concerns, and just thought process related to reparations and the repair. And particularly when we look at where we are in these days and times here in the U.S., when we look at the fact that books are being banned, when we look at the fact that voting rights are being turned back, when we look at the fact that reproductive rights are being turned back, and just so many things that, just generally speaking, Black people have gone through in America. You know, not only the slavery, but certainly the Jim Crow, the indentured servants, in terms of the redlining, and the list just goes on and on and on. And when you look at Black people's wealth compared to white people's wealth, there's a significant, a tremendous gap. When you look at Black women in business, while Black women go into business more than just about any other group, when it comes to capacity building and capital and those kinds of investments, it's just not there. So when we look at reparations, certainly we can consider art, and there's so many ways that we can implement reparations. But I certainly want to put forth as well reparations in terms of dollar bills. Dollar bills, you all. And why is that so important? Because when you look at the wealth gap, and when you look at the fact that Black people were free of charge for how many years? Even our former First Lady talked about the fact that slaves built the White House. So the point is that we want ours too. We want ours too. You know, whether it's the Japanese, the Jewish, oh, by the way, you deserve that. But guess what? So do Black people. So, yeah. And then finally, I just want to lift up what several cousins said in terms of the letter writing campaign to Governor Hochul. That's very important, because just because this wonderful legislation has passed, and it, by the way, is to explore, it's exploratory legislation for the commission. But we're not even going to officially get to the point of officially exploring it unless the governor signs it. So I am just reinforcing that we all need to be involved. Certainly I had a conversation with Colleen, and we were shaking our heads together. But again, we want to share with everyone to get involved. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. We're going to go into our lightning round, question and answer, for our panelists, and thank you for all the comments thus far. This next question is to Cherish. Please tell us about right to counsel.
Okay, well, right to counsel, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, is basically the legislation that has just passed, which will allow everyone to have a right to an attorney in a housing case. Some people may be surprised to know that that was not a right. Housing is a basic human right, and many people who are facing eviction don't have an attorney when they stand up before a judge, and there is no right to have an attorney until this is implemented. And we see it through, but it was passed and signed, and yeah, so now everyone will have an attorney in housing.
Thank you. So when we talk about gatekeeping as a superpower, that is one example of affording counsel to people that otherwise would not be able to afford counsel because of the rampant discrepancies and disparities across race, gender, and other identities. So thank you, Cherish. Next speed round question is for Sarah. Once we have this information that we get from the archives in Westchester County, how do we go about educating our communities and then commemorating the contributions of the enslaved Africans in a permanent and public way?
Raise money and get a Vinnie Bagwell statue. We also had a great friend in Mary Jane Shinsky when she was part of the Westchester County Board of Legislators. They were tremendous support and great funders for us. But just partner up with your local library. They always have a room, they always have refreshments, and just pull together a little presentation. Whatever it is that you have found out, there are people who are going to be interested, and that's your first posse right there. Those are the folks. You get their names, you get their numbers, and you just move from there. There's just a million different ways of getting this information out, and I'm happy to help anytime too.
So to read reiterate the policy points that our panelists just mentioned. Letter writing, when we like something, letter writing, phone calling, funding projects, and really working with elected officials to ask for funding, and giving access where access is not otherwise there. So the next lightning round question is going to go to Stoop. How does family of origin and ancestral or historical study and engagement connect to racial justice?
Let's see. Something that I've found is that as white folks in racial justice movements, I've found that it's easier for us to do our historical study than to do our own connection to our own families of origin. And that has been a very curious piece. A lot of the work that I've been doing is actually in family of origin work. And that was because anti-racist elders early on said the most important work that white people can do is actually go back to your white families and get reconnected. And that actually has been a big part of like smashing this lie of individualism, is connecting to my roots, seeing who I was made from, seeing the truth of who my father is, the truth of who my mother is, and like seeing that in me and being curious about learning about myself because I connect to my family who I left a long time ago with lots of good reasons to not go back, but then to take that journey home and to heal even in the midst of a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, true suffering. But I think that the two are connected because, if we do family of origin work, that contributes to our ancestral work. If we do ancestral work, we can connect that back to our family of origin work. And it's, again, really about smashing the delusion of individualism. This is multi-generational work. When we can look back in our history and see where we came from, we see that we're connected to a root of something, and that we're not just disconnected individuals running around and bumping into things. That idea of who we are is what has us be so fragile. And when we're rooted, we can put up with a lot, and we're not actually fragile. And that's the work to do, is to like find our rootedness.
Thank you. Okay, so the last lightning round question is going to go to Leila. In what ways are you building bridges or empowering people in your community?
I'm trying to have patience. But ways that I'm bridging people is having conversations, connecting with our local organizations. We have a coalition for affordable housing. We have a coalition for understanding racism through education. I created a BIPOC parent affinity group for one of our school districts. I created a Black males group called The Space, and it's for Black men to come and talk and commune and really talk about topics that pertain to them. And I'm working with the students in one of our school districts, hopefully. I have two school districts that are in my community, Marion School District and Rhinebeck School District. I'm trying to connect with Rhinebeck, but I'm working with Marion School District and their students because they have a lot of discriminatory racist practices that the kids have felt over the years, and there are lawsuits and different things that went up to the state, and I'm there to support them. But really have hard conversations with all of our community and listening to everybody, not just myself. Individuals who are really raising awareness for environmental reasons, for housing reasons, for flooding reasons, because America is a flood zone. And everything in between, just having those conversations and trying to see how we can all meet each other in the middle. So,
thank you. Let's pause more question from the audience, and I just want to thank everyone for your time. We're going to bring up one more person from the county, and I just want everyone to remember that legislation is lived. Legislation doesn't have to take a long time. And legislation comes from our imagination. I'll give a quick personal story. I had a conversation with someone in here about the forgiveness of student loan debt, maybe about 6 months to a year ago. And we're policy people, we're voting people. And you know, there was a disconnect about, you know, well, I had to do this, and I don't know if that should really be, you know, the law of the land. Since then, this administration has given $42 billion in student loan debt forgiveness. That is something to applaud. That is something to applaud. Because when you look at identities like race or gender or socioeconomic, it's not equal across the board. So people who might have been able to pay or went to school for free are not the same people that are saddled with student loan debt right now. So, through this administration, personally, my student loan debt has been forgiven $124,000. That includes Parent Plus, and it was through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. That's right. Yes. So I'm glad to share that information. They have allotted $63 billion to be forgiven. So we still have about $20 billion to go. And as you know, the president has been in court with the Biden loan forgiveness. So we can literally change policy. We are all examples of that. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Don't worry, Michelle. We'll talk about it. So this concludes. Better? Yeah. Better so far, so good? Okay, so that means we're closing. No. Okay. So going back to imagining policy, and when we bring up someone from Westchester County, we advocated for GARE, which is the Government Alliance on Racial Equity, and we have a GARE representative from Westchester County, Karen Pasquale.
Okay, thank you. Hi, can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. What wonderful program. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you. My name is Karen Pasquale. I work for County Executive Latimer, and I work on the operations team for the county executive. And so what that really means is we work on policy implementation and programmatic implementation. We work with the different departments of county government to work through whatever issues they may be having, but on a larger level, we work on bigger policy issues. And one of those bigger policy issues has been GARE. And the county's been a member, as was mentioned, the county's been a member of GARE for about just over a year now. And what we're trying to do is we're working with our Equal Employment Opportunity Office. And some of you may know the director of that office. Her name is Jerice Epps. But we're working with that office, which is part of the Human Resources Department for the county, to implement the principles behind GARE. And so what Jerice, in her capacity as head of the EEO, does is she is implementing what we're calling a value equity program. And it's a very individualized program. So, of course, we work within the context of the civil service system, which can be a bear. But what she tries to do is work with the departments, and if you know, the breadth of county departments is such that we may need engineers for the Department of Environmental Facilities.
who work on sewage treatment plants, or engineers for the Department of Public Works who work on road projects and planning projects. We need social workers, we need mental health counselors, so the county has such a breadth of responsibilities, and it needs a huge variety of people to work in its employ, that she tries to work individually with each of the departments, figure out where the kinds of jobs that they need to fill to meet their mandates, where we stand with those jobs in terms of our current workforce as compared to the census for the county. So, and where there are deficiencies. And how can we seek to fill the positions where there are deficiencies and reach out and in a broader based way than we ever have before, and reach out and fill and get a more diverse applicant pool into the county. So that's the work that we've started at the county, and of course we've identified the areas where we want to be improving, where we want to be expanding our reach. Part of the other piece of that depends on when there are actually openings in the jobs. And then, of course, within the context of the civil service system, all of those rules and regulations. So, I want to be realistic here. We're excited to do the work. It's needed work. It is a process for us that we're working through, and that we are moving forward on in a way that we would like to be integrated into the whole county. So we also have a new HR commissioner that's come on board, who has come on board recently within the last month or so. And the kinds of things that we've talked to her about are integrating that work throughout the whole HR department, not just keeping it within the EEO office, but integrating it further into the work of the whole HR department. So we're there, we're doing this work, we're trying to figure out who we can reach out to get new candidates, have a broader reach. And it's no longer, go to the county website, the jobs website. If anyone who's ever tried to navigate the county jobs website understands that that's not the solution. So we have to do a lot more than that, and that's what we're working on. Thank you.
I think the most important thing is that, we have not done this before. We have not been this introspective, we have not been this inclusive, so we're all figuring out what race equity looks like, and we love to partner with the county in every way.
Thank you. You guys have been great to partner with.
Thank you. Last question.
From Home Store and the Board of the Women's Agenda. You can take out your phone right now, as I did when one of our speakers was saying, we have to let the governor know that we want her to sign that legislation. So I went on Twitter. Please take out your phones. This is Pop Quiz. Pop Quiz. If you're on Twitter, go at @GovKathyHopeful and tell her what you want. At @GovKathyHopeful, we need you to address the legacy of slavery, sign the legislation for reparations.
Yes, thank you.
Facebook, Twitter. What's the other one?
Instagram.
Yep. Right? If you do a TikTok video, there's about 15 people in the room. Think what the people who look at her social media are going to think if you all do this right now.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
At Governor Hochul, right?
At Governor.
At Hochul. At Gov.
At Gov.
Kathy Hochul.
Yeah, let's do that right now. So through my activism, I have the privilege of teaching at NYU, and I teach students in the School of Social Work, social action,
impact of Twitter and the like to really get to our elected officials. So please do that. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Carla, one of our board members. So in closing, the reason I talked about the student loan debt forgiveness is because it is an equity issue. Black women are the highest educated demographic in the country. And most Black women by generation are starting over each generation. There's not that same transfer of generational wealth. So although the program is open to all of us, when Black women are able to take advantage of that program, and we know history tells us that sometimes we're excluded from policy and from budget allocation, it is a source of race equity. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. This is a continued conversation. We are on a journey together, and we do hope that you will engage with us more in the future. Thank you very much.
Program was enlightening and informative, and I invite you to continue to engage the Westchester Women's agenda. Please visit our tables and find out what actions they're taking, and come work with us. We invite you to join us. There's lots of work to be done. Thanks again for coming.